So in Muqaddimah Hadramiyyah we have entered into the chapter of prayers. So we have completed Kitab al-Tahara, that is the chapter of Tahara. So now we have entered into the chapter of prayers. So last week we have entered and we spoke about some of what the author mentioned in the beginning of this particular chapter. These are known as the the conditions of the obligations of prayers. The conditions of the obligations of prayers, and we call it syurutu wujubi as-salah, conditions pertaining to the obligation of prayers. And if these conditions are present, then it is wajib upon the person to perform any prayers. So we mentioned about a Muslim, that prayers is compulsory upon Muslim. As for non-Muslim, prayers are not compulsory upon them, and even if they perform the prayers will not be valid. But Yawm al-Qiyamah they will be reckoned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for not believing in Allah and not performing the prayers. So although in this world prayers is not valid from them, but they are accountable towards the performance of prayers in the hereafter. Baligh, Aqil, Tahir, all this we spoke about that. These are basically to taklif. We call it the conditions of taklif, that a person must reach puberty and must be sane and intellectually able, and not a mad person. Tahir, in a state of purity. For a woman who is under menses or postnatal bleeding, prayers are not compulsory for them. Fala qada'a ala kafirin ila al-murtad. And a non-Muslim who enters Islam, it is not compulsory for him to make up the prayers of kufr, the prayers at the time of disbelief, except that for apostate. For the apostate, he apostate and he returned back to Islam. This is what I mentioned here in brackets. He entered back into Islam, so he has to make up for the number of prayers in the days of apostasy. So if 3 years, then 3 years of prayers and he has to make up. So non-Muslim, not wajib for them to make up their prayers. So apostate, yes, it's wajib as a punishment for his apostasy. Wala ala murma alayhi, prayers is not wajib upon those who faint or in coma, except that those who is intoxicated, voluntarily intoxicated, and for example drinking liquor or eating some pills, and with the sole purpose of getting intoxicated and without any valid reason, then it is compulsory upon him to make up for the prayers. وَيَجِبُ عَلَى الْوَلِي وَالسَّيِّدْ أَمْرُ السَّبِيلِ الْمُمَيِّزْ بِهَا لِسَبْعِ سِنِينَ. I believe all this I covered already. Wajib upon parents to command the children who has not reached puberty but has reached tamyiz to perform the prayers when they reach 7 years of age, and to beat them when they have reached 10 years of age. And if the child reach puberty, or the mad person recover from his madness, or a person recover from his fainting, all these are situations, and the non-Muslim entered into Islam, the one who is having menses and postnatal bleeding, and he now becomes pure before the coming out of the timing of prayer, even from one takbir, even for one takbir. So let me explain this again. This is the point where we stop. And basically the author mentioned that it is wajib for them to make up. Wajib for them to make up. So now we have a situation where to make it simple, I'll put it in this way. We have this what we call it in Arabic, we call it mani'. Mani' in English, preventive factor. So I will translate mani' as the preventive factor. So let me explain this. So we need some concentration to understand this thing. It is not an easy an easy thing. A lot of people are still until today are asking, even we have studied for your information, because these things it requires sometimes some revision. So now we have two situations. Situation number one is the preventive factor comes. The situation number 1, preventive factor comes. I will give example. Situation number 2, the preventive factor disappears. So we have 2 situations. Again, and I repeat, any preventive factor, any that comes, and preventive factor, any that disappears. So what is an example of preventive any factor? So a simple example will be menses. Menses is a preventive any factor. What do we mean any? Menses any is a preventive any factor, meaning if a woman any has menses, it prevents her any from performing prayers. This is what we meant any by the preventive any factor. Tamam? So menses any can have 2 situations as a preventive any factor. The first situation, as what we mentioned, the preventive factor comes, any meaning she suddenly has menses. So this is an example where the preventive factor comes. Situation number 2, the blood stops. The menses blood stops. So now the preventive factor disappears. So this is what I meant. Preventive factor any that comes, preventive factor that disappears. So now the question is it compulsory upon her to make up for the prayer? So let us go back and look at the first situation. So now we speak about preventive factor that comes. So preventive factor any that comes, any meaning the woman now is in a state of purity. She doesn't have any menses. The time any of Zohor is at 1 p.m. Time of Zohor is for 1 p.m. So 1 p.m. when it comes, she did not perform any of the Zohor prayers. She said that maybe I want to perform Zohor prayers at 2 p.m. That's his time. There is still time. But the problem is after 20 minutes, 1:20 the menses comes. Now this is what we meant, the preventive factor comes at 1:20. So now the question we ask, she has not performed any of the Zohor prayers, and 1:20 the blood comes, 20 minutes after Adhan. Is it compulsory upon her to make up for the Zohor prayers? Is it compulsory upon her to make up for this is the question. Is it compulsory upon her to make up for the Zohor prayers? So the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Why? Because 20 minutes is sufficient time for her to take ablution, to wear her clothes, to cover herself, and to perform the prayers. So let's say a woman needs 10 minutes. Wudu, prayers, 10 minutes. So 1:20 have passed, mean 20 minutes. And she has not performed the prayers. So since she has the sufficient time to perform prayers, but she chose not to perform any of the prayers, then she has to make up for the prayer. So after the menses and after the menstruation cycle, she has to make up the Zohor prayers. She has to make up the Zohor prayers. So this is the example of the first situation where the preventive factor comes. So I hope it is clear. Before I forget, I just want to tell those who are following pertaining to the book, and I just sent for printing. So inshallah in 2-3 weeks time, the book of Muqaddimah Hadramiyyah English and translation inshallah ta'ala will be ready. So a few months I've been saying this, but because I've I need to edit in some of the things, so on. I was busy and so on and so forth. I was thinking initially I need to print the photocopy, but now I thought back. I thought that it's better I need to do a proper printing rather than giving any people any photocopy. So that's why it takes some more time. So inshallah ta'ala, in 2-3 weeks anytime, inshallah, based on what I heard from the printing side. So inshallah the book will be available in our mosque for your information. Before I forget So now we go back to the preventive factor. I take my time to explain, no hurry, because these things sometimes need some ponderance. If you have any questions you can ask. You can ask and you can type your question at the YouTube. Don't type at the Facebook. It's difficult for me. I need to Facebook. Sometimes I need to refresh. So you type at the comments section. So inshallah before I finish, I just take a look at the comment section if there's any question. So now the first situation I hope is clear. So now we speak about the second situation. Second situation, the preventive factor disappears. Like we still use the example of menses. So easy. Preventive factor disappears. So what is the situation now?
Okay, this is what the author is saying here. Now, Asar is at 4 p.m. Asar is at 4 p.m. Asar, what you call it, is at 4 p.m. A woman is having menses. So now it's the opposite. Just now it's different. Now she has menses. So she doesn't pray Zohor. But then 1 minute before Asar, 3:59. Here the author gave the what you call it, the example of one takbir. One takbir and it's only 2 seconds. But we just for the sake of simplicity and we use 1 minute. Asar is at 4 p.m. At 3:59 the menses stops. So meaning menses stop meaning what? The preventive factor disappeared. This is what we meant. The preventive factor disappeared. So in this situation, even though she doesn't have the time to bathe, to take wudu and to pray, because 1 minute and before Asar, it is wajib upon her to make up for the prayer. So this is the difference between preventive factor that comes and preventive factor that disappears. When preventive factor that comes, we take into consideration the amount of time, whether she has the capacity to take wudu and to perform prayers or not. But when comes to preventive factor that disappears, we do not take consideration whether she has the time or not have the time. If we find out that the preventive factor disappears before the coming of the second prayer, then it is compulsory upon her to make up for the first prayer. So that is the example earlier we gave. 3:59 the menses stops, so she has to make up for the Zohor prayers. Tamam? She has to make up for the Zohor prayers. If the menses stops at before Maghrib, and let's say Maghrib is 7 p.m. The menses stops at 6:59. The menses stops at 6:59. She has to make up for the Asar prayers and the Zohor prayers. Why? Because Zohor and Asar is considered to be one timing in this regard. Zohor and Asar is considered to be one timing, and we say this is Waktu Darurah. Waktu Darurah. So now she has to make up for the Asr and Zohor prayers. So a lot of women I believe will do not know this. Do not know. That's why it's wajib upon women to understand this. Why we say especially women? Because normally this occurs to women. But for me, I need to give example for men. What example can I give for preventive factor that disappears? Okay, I can use as what the author mentioned, when a non-believer, what you call it, enters into the fold of Islam, or a person who becomes mad and he becomes sober again, or a person who is in a coma and then wakes up. So all this can be done, but this is rare. This is rare, correct or not? This is something that does not occur always. Even what you call it, when a person wants to convert, usually people will take into consideration the time, correct or not? You do not want to convert for example, to say the shahada, for example, just 1 minute before what you call it, before Asr, for example. And if you know this, you just delay a bit, correct or not? You just delay a bit. And if you do not delay, then you need to inform that person that he has to make up for the prayer. But usually when people convert, of course they will choose a time which will make them relax in the sense that they can still have the time to learn about prayer. People convert in the morning, for example 9 a.m. At least they have about 2-3 hours before Zohor time for them to learn or to memorize Surah Al-Fatiha, correct or not? So usually when people convert they convert doing such timings, because the moment you convert prayers becomes compulsory. But for women this is like monthly event, correct or not? This is like monthly, because menses, and menses sometimes it stops at a particular time, sometimes it starts at a particular time. So there is no specific timing to menses. So that is why, especially for ladies, it is wajib upon her or upon them to understand this ruling. So I just summarize this thing. So again, we summarize it. Situation number 1, the preventive factor comes. Situation number 2, the preventive factor disappears. If the preventive factor comes, we take into consideration the amount of time. If she is able to do so and she does not do so, then it is not wajib for her to make up. For example, if the menses comes at 1:02. Zuhur is at 1 p.m. 1:02 menses comes. So now we say not compulsory upon her any to make up for the Zuhur prayers. Because why 2 minutes anyhow? She doesn't have any the sufficient time any to take wudu and all these things. Tamam? So I hope it is clear. Insha'Allah ta'ala. So let us see if there is any questions. There are no questions. So inshallah ta'ala, I think we will just stop here. Because of time of Isha is coming. So this is just to give a brief introduction about this thing. So the author mentioned yajibul qada'u, and we look at this. He said ويجب قضاء وجب القضاء بشرط بقاء سلامة من الموانع بقدر ما يسع الطهارة والصلاة. So this is the first situation if she has the time for tahara and salah. And then he mentioned ويجب قضاء ما قبلها إن جمعت معها, and it is also compulsory upon her to make up the prayer that is before. If it happens in Asr time, then she has to make up for Asr, and she has to make up for Asr and Zuhur. And then بشرط السلامة من الموانع قدر الفرضين وطهارة. This I will postpone to next week because this requires more explanation. At least I require 5 minutes to explain in this part, and this is one of the difficult things in Muqaddimah Hadramiyyah in the chapter of prayers. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah.